Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam rasulullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Catherine Jones, founder of the Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy and the developer of the Islamic version of the Spark curriculum. Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy and Spark Initiative came together in partnership in order for us to create a culturally and Islamically sensitive curriculum of the Spark curriculum for students in our Muslim schools across the globe. Everything that we do in this curriculum is based around the verse that Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear, teaching our students that no matter what they go through in this life, whatever tests they will face, that they will be okay. The Back to the Fitra vision is that Muslims across the globe realize their personal potential so they are successful in this life and the next. And our mission is to cultivate human potential and Islamic values in our schools and homes, one thought at a time, through education, mentoring, and coaching. Our basic values are that we believe no one is broken, that we are all in this together, there is potential in everyone, in inclusivity, respect and compassion, in hope and possibility, in transparency and communication, and that love is the answer. Our Back to the Fitra perspective is that we are all okay, and we base this on the verse that Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear. That means that no matter what we're going through now, or what we went through in the past, or what we're going to go through in the future, we are actually always okay. Our focus is on emotional and spiritual resilience, based on the verse that in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. If we are focusing from one moment to the next and living in this present moment, thinking about how we are here to please Allah and what Allah expects of us in this moment, then we will have a heart that is at rest. In other words, everything is based around tawakkul, putting our ultimate trust in Allah, submitting to the qadr of Allah, accepting the qadr of Allah. Alhamdulillah. We were all born on the fitra, and so our resilience, confidence, patience, and inner peace is actually innate in each and every one of us. Hence the name Back to the Fitra. So when we understand what is preventing us from being in good connection with our own wisdom, resilience, confidence, that connection with Allah, the tawakkul that actually is behind having all of those states of being, then profound changes happen quite effortlessly. Subhanallah. So the Back to the Fitra approach is that we have core programs aimed at Muslim adults, parents, teachers, and children. Peaceful Hearts is the core program that teaches all about the fact that we are all okay, and is based around the verse, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. It's a 10-week program that takes the participants step by step through understanding their innate emotional and spiritual resilience. Peaceful Parenting is an extension of that, where we also go into the details of the parent-child relationship. If we can parent our children better, we are going to corrupt their fitra less, and we're going to have the next generation of adults more spiritually and emotionally resilient than we have been, inshallah. And teaching with inner salam is the same idea or concept for teachers, helping teachers be in that state of calm despite the stresses and the pressures that they're under in the classroom, so that they can show up for our students and also be a part of nurturing that fitra in our children rather than corrupting it, inshallah. And then finally, the Islamic Spark program, so that we are teaching our students from the beginning that they are actually okay, and helping them be resilient against the corruptions of the world that are going to corrupt that fitra. As the Prophet ﷺ taught us, all children are born on the fitra, but it is their parents, their environment, and what is around them that corrupts them and turns them into a Christian, a Jew, or a Magian, or anything else with the plethora of ideas that are out there for our children to latch onto, subhanallah. Our approach is global and online to reach all corners of this earth. And in order to facilitate that in the best way possible, there is a certification program to teach others so that they can actually teach in their own local language and charge their own local currency. Because one of the core values of Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy is that everybody deserves to have this knowledge, not just those who can afford it. And then a program to translate the online programs into all the languages of the certified coaches. Currently, there are 7 certified coaches, mentors, and educators, another 3 on the way. This year, we have 14 participants in the certification program. You will also learn a little later on that there is a certification process for teachers for implementing Spark in schools as well. The partnership with the Spark initiative. I chose Spark because it is evidence-based, and I will present to you some of the evidence later on in this session. It's student-focused. I love the way in which students participate, engage, and they're doing something in order to learn. I truly believe that the best learning is done when we don't actually realize we're learning. It's interactive and very engaging. And the Dean is woven into the lessons. The word Dean actually means the relationship between spiritual, intellectual, and civilized life. And this curriculum, with Islamic teachings woven into it, actually incorporates that meaning. Alhamdulillah. The target audience for the curriculum is youth aged 6 to 22. The goals of the curriculum: to reduce risk factors, uncover resiliency, promote emotional well-being, achieve academic success, develop communication skills, develop conflict resolution skills, develop connectedness to family, school, and community. The objectives are achieved through lessons where they understand their human experience to reduce risky behaviors and uncover resiliency. Through generalization, so connecting what they're learning to their life experiences and circumstances. Through mentoring, by building relationships and connectedness between the adults and the students. And through community involvement, utilizing their leadership and creativity to give back to their community. Challenges that we are looking to resolve through this curriculum: aggressive, reactive, impulsive behaviors, poor academic success, lack of school commitment, depression and anxiety, low confidence, self-esteem, low social skills, disrespect towards authority. The strategies are, with the core curriculum, to be run during or after school through the school year. This is not meant to be a short-lived program, but something that is woven in over 1, 2, 3 years within a school. Sessions weekly or bi-weekly with mentoring in between are optimal for the results. Lessons to teach the understanding of our human experience in conjunction with our understanding of Islam. Teaching personal and interpersonal skills. Navigating life successfully, and of course, from our Islamic perspective, the tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us successfully. Other strategies are incorporating topic-specific modules such as relationships, leadership, life skills, Islamic values, and these will be unpacked more later on. Sex education and drugs education are other areas we can dive into, especially given that in some countries we are required to cover these topics, but we want to cover them from an Islamic perspective. The techniques we use are group discussion, role plays, worksheets, decision making, creative challenges, videos, trivia, teachable moments and stories, relatable story sharing between teachers and students, real life examples, and demonstrations. It really is a very holistic approach to teaching, mentoring, and coaching, actually, our students to this understanding. Other strategies used, we have the opportunity to do one-on-one mentoring with students that need that extra help. Community involvement, engaging the community, so building that connection between the students, their school community, and their Muslim community, and perhaps even further, their non-Muslim community, inshallah. And then there is the possibility of Spark facilitator training, where teachers from your school are actually certified to facilitate this training within your school. The theory of change, the outputs, insight into thought recognition. So understanding how their thinking is actually working for and against them. Insight into their inner resilience, their clear-mindedness and mindfulness. Getting students to understand that they can slow down and have that space to really have clarity in the moment as to how Allah is guiding them to the straight path, and really connecting with that and being able to use that in being resilient and mindful in how they're showing up in this life. Understand the dynamics of feelings and how feelings are getting in the way of that, what role feelings play, and how we should understand our feelings. Insight into their self-esteem. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created each and every one of us perfectly with purpose, but we lose sight of that. And self-esteem comes through reconnecting with that fact that we are perfect as we are, and we have a purpose. And each and every one of us, our purpose will be diverse and will be specific to us, specifically how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed us. Yes, our behavior may not be perfect, and that's what this curriculum is all about, helping students improve on. But as beings themselves, they're perfect just the way they are. Decision making. So from that, when they get connected to Allah and they're really connected with how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding them to Sirat al-Mustaqim, to the straight path, and using that as their gauge for decision making, then they can make very powerful life decisions moving forward in their lives, inshallah. Increase positive connection with themselves, others, and community. And for us, with our Islamic teachings, most importantly, that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Short-term outcomes from the program: increased resilience, increased inhibition and impulse control, increased problem solving, decision making and conflict resolution, increased communication skills, increased positive outlook, and greater sense of well-being. This is just in the short term. In the long term, the impact is increased academic success, self-confidence and self-worth, self-regulation, engagement in positive relationships, acceptance in the differences in others, and engagement in pro-social behaviors. How we measure this is a number of ways: through fidelity skills and teacher input, through activities, service delivery documents, just from one activity to the next, from one lesson to the next. We have outputs. There's a pre and post curriculum survey, which is very detailed and breaks down the change in the class from before and after the program in areas of connection to community, to their own self-worth, to their own connection to the school and the view of the school. It's very comprehensive. We get student feedback at the end and teacher feedback at the end. The long-term impact, as in school attendance records, school discipline, noticing that there is less necessity for discipline, and the results in student school reports. Here's some statistics that come from the research that has been done around the Spark mentoring programs. So this is from the non-Islamic secular version. they had 497 participants, 251 were randomly assigned, 215 were a control group, 31 were lost in attrition. So they had these results. And we're talking about over the implementation of the core program over 12 weeks. So 3 to 6 months of working with these students. 72% of students exposed to this showed positive change in their understanding of how the mind works and their mental well-being, while only 32% of the students who didn't have the exposure showed positive change. So there was a significant increase. 67% of the students exposed to the Spark showed a positive change in their communication, decision-making, problem-solving skills, whereas only 26% without Spark exposure showed positive change. 72% showed less difficulty in regulating their emotions and their impulse control, whereas only 28% did without exposure to the curriculum. 66% showed positive change in their level to resilience and their ability to bounce back from tough circumstances, whereas 26% had change without exposure, and 66% of students showed positive change in their level of resilience and their ability to relate and have compassion for others during tough circumstances, where in contrast only 26% had that change without exposure to the Spark curriculum. So as you can see, there's a significant shift in a very short amount of time in implementing this program, even without the Islamic teachings, which I believe actually have a greater impact, subhanallah. So expectations are important. The expectation and research states that it takes approximately 6 to 12 months to see desired outcomes from the mentoring programs. Additionally, mentoring relationships that last 1 year or longer have shown the biggest improvements in academic, psychosocial, and behavior outcomes. Research also states that mentoring pairs should spend at least 1 to 2 hours together per week for at least 1 school year. In other words, the mentor with their students to spend 1 to 2 hours per week during the school year for the best results. Now, even if that's not possible, we have seen amazing results just from 1 lesson per week over the period of 6 to 12 months. Subhanallah. Now, the Spark program's Islamic version. The Spark definition. So in order to make this actually befitting of our Islamic understanding, some elements of the curriculum really had to be shifted because of issues of Tawheed and the way things were being expressed in the original Spark curriculum. So this is the definition for Spark, which is the metaphor we use in this curriculum. Spark is the light of Iman, of belief and guidance from Allah that you experience when you have a good connection with Allah. This is our definition of Spark. And the way we use this word throughout the curriculum is that everybody was born on the fitrah. Everybody was born with that spark inside. And that we all still have that spark, but people have various levels of access to that spark at this point. So of course the disbeliever, you know how Allah says there's a blanket over their hearts, well there's a blanket over their spark. And as we know, as those who have an unhealthy heart, there's a blanket on and off the heart, or black spots over the heart. So this is where we lose connection with our spark. We can't see that spark anymore. And then of course you have the good heart, which is where we have total access, clear access to our spark. And that's how we are using the language of spark throughout the curriculum, is bringing the students back to, are you listening to your spark? Can you see your spark? It's a very hopeful way of looking at it, and The word spark therefore incorporates quite a number of Islamic concepts and is used as a metaphor to cover those concepts. So sometimes spark might be framed in terms of that's where we find our wisdom, because our wisdom comes through that connection from Allah. It might be that our spark is where we find our creativity or our intuition, and all of it boils back to how Allah is guiding us and our connection with Allah and the wisdom that we get through that connection from Allah. Developing the Islamic version, the things that I took into consideration was cultural sensitivity. So names were changed to be Muslim familiar names, scenarios that are more relevant to our audience. So just making it culturally sensitive, making Islamically appropriate. So taking out scenarios or activities that don't fit to our Islamic etiquettes, such as boys and girls working together or boyfriend and girlfriend type scenarios. Incorporating Islamic lessons naturally woven into each lesson, and taking into consideration our Muslim school culture to make sure the activities work well within our Muslim school settings. The current status of this process is that the pre-teen curriculum from ages 10 to 13 is in fact in practice, where there are teachers who have been trained to implement this program in a key school in Australia. I have also taught this curriculum to 4 different classes last year in another school and have the results from the work that we have done in that curriculum. So this curriculum is ready to be adopted across other schools, has been tried and tested, and in a minute I will explain to you what that looks like. The teen curriculum for ages 13 to 22, I anticipate being ready at the beginning of 2021, inshallah. And the primary curriculum from ages 6 to 10 to be available late 2021. So at the moment we have the preteen curriculum, which is absolutely amazing curriculum. I love teaching it. It's a heap of fun. The kids love it. The teachers love it. The teachers in the school that are now currently implementing it, and there's 9 teachers doing that at the moment, all love it and say their students love it as well. And I have a testimonial a bit later to share with you around that. So the preteen curriculum, the term 1 is all about learning, and there's 9 lessons to incorporate in that. We begin with connections and purpose. So we're connecting with them, developing the relationship with the students. So it's really engaging and fun, lots of laughter at the beginning to really establish that connection straight away. And the purpose of the curriculum. So bringing it back to the fact that we are all okay, because Allah says He'll never burden any of us with more than we can bear. And really bringing the activities, bringing it back to the fact that life is just about challenges and tests, and that this life is about how mindful we are around those tests and challenges. How it looks now, this is our second session, and this is where they do the pre-program survey. I like to build the connection with them before I get them to sit down and answer 50 questions, because I want them to see this as being a fun place to be before they have to do something so heavy as answering so many questions. I also do an activity with them where they get to share with us how much Islamophobia, bullying, sadness, anger, and stress that they experience in their life, so that we can get a feel for where our classes are in that. And then an activity where they share with us what makes them, it's a group activity, what makes them angry, what makes them sad, and what makes them stressed. So as educators, we can see already the picture of our class. We have a great picture of how it looks now. So we can then use what we have learned from those activities in how we implement the lessons moving forward. Then we move into teaching them how their experience works. How does a human experience work? And lead that into decision making. Now, when we call it decision making here, it's them deciding how do they behave in the moment and connecting that back to their feelings. And this is then linked to Surat al-Mustaqim, where they're deciding whether to stay on the straight path or not. This is how we weave Islam into it. And then we actually start to teach them how their feelings really work, so that they can understand what it is that is influencing their behavior, so that they can begin to have a different experience on and a different way of showing up in their behavior. From there, we go into understanding the spark. So how does all this fit with our spark? What is our spark? How does it work? This is all done in a very experiential way. We get them to check in with themselves when they did something that went really badly or they got into trouble for, compared to something that went really well that they might have even got rewarded for, and whether they listen to their spark in that moment. So really connecting our students back to, how is Allah guiding you in that moment? And are you listening to that guidance, or are you resisting it, going against it? Really getting them to look inwardly so that they notice, because when we do the wrong thing, as long as we haven't got to the point that there is, a complete blanket over our heart, we will experience that feeling inside that this is something we shouldn't be doing. And we want our students to connect back to that and understand that. We then move on to self-confidence and take them from seeing confidence as something that we have seen as something as an outward thing, to bringing it back into that confidence is actually something within us. It's innate within us, and it comes from that connection with Allah. It comes from tawakkul of Allah. So it really comes back to, are we showing up as we should for the sake of Allah or not? And that really leads on to dealing with stress and anxiety. What is stress and anxiety, and how that is feelings, and those feelings are coming from our thought. And when we're having those feelings, our judgment is clouded and we have less access to our spark. And if we just allow those thoughts to pass, our spark is still there to guide us. And then we bring them back to tawakkul. Back to tawakkul, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us, and so we don't need to be stressed and anxious, and that Allah will never burden us with more than we can bear. So therefore it's all okay, and the outcome is in Allah's hands anyway. We then do an activity in communication and reactions, and here we start actually showing them how all of this applies into their relationships with each other, and how mood and feelings and everything actually change the way we communicate with each other, and therefore the way we react to each other. So this is the learning that we do in the first term. In second term, we then start applying it to life circumstances and making it relevant to them. So now we start applying this knowledge into their life. How does this fit? Why is this relevant? And all the way through, of course, we're making it relevant to their life. Firstly, the first lesson in term 2 is appreciating diversity, helping them see that all of us have our own thought in the moment. All of us have our own perspectives. So diversity doesn't actually just extend to accepting people from different colors, from different races, from different language backgrounds, but that even within those cultural backgrounds or racial backgrounds or language backgrounds or whatever other backgrounds, that each and every individual also is diverse, that none of us are identical. And so really appreciating the separate realities. And this actually makes everybody on the same level from that perspective, and brings everybody back to being a human being. And what's beautiful about this is it opens the possibility for judgment to fall away. And it opens up the possibility for us to see everybody as people with a spark. Everyone was born on the fitra, even the non-Muslims. But everybody's spark is covered to either uncovered or covered to some degree. And of course, the disbelievers still have their spark there, but it's completely covered. And so it opens possibility for us to be less judgmental of people from other faiths and be able to reach out to them in a compassionate way, but also to be compassionate to one another, because this breaks diversity down to the individual and to humanity. We then go on to the modules with the first lesson from the relationship module of navigating relationships. How does this then play a role in how we are in our relationships? And from there, we go into the leadership module of using your spark to be a good role model. So how can they then show up in life, lead their life, and lead others in their life by being a good role model? And then we start looking at leadership. And yes, bullying comes under leadership, because we want to see the solution to bullying as them taking the lead in themselves to not bully others, but taking the lead also to being part of the solution to ending bullying. So we start dissecting bullying and what is underneath it, and bringing it back to what we've learned about feelings and disconnection from spark. And so therefore, what are the solutions to bullying? And so we're coming now to the compassionate and helpful way and hopeful way for everyone to be a part of a solution to ending bullying, inshallah. We then move on to a module on Islamic values around gratitude. Now that we've discovered, compassion and non-judgment, we want to move into gratitude and forgiveness and start building on that to build a more loving approach to how they see each other, themselves, their community, and the world, inshallah. We now bring the lessons back to themselves again and their school life and life skills, the life skills module on academic stress to academic success. And the key here is that now that they've understood all about their relationships, which is often where their stress is coming from, that is leading, and so bullying and all these things are known to be influences on their academic success. So we can now have a positive outlook to that. And just now adding on to that, how they don't need to hold on to the stresses or the academic stresses and see their success as being the outcome, but seeing their success more about ihsan and showing up with excellence. That everybody is different. Everyone is going to have strengths and weaknesses. So the results are going to be different for everyone. What is important and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cares about is that they show up with ihsan, that they put their trust in Allah, and that they leave the outcome comes to Allah. That as long as they are doing their best, that's all that matters. We then do the leadership model, understanding your community. We want them to start seeing how they are a valuable member of their community, of society, and how they can be part of the solution. We show them a brilliant story of a 9-year-old and what she was able to achieve for homeless women, subhanAllah, with just a little project she came up with that she implemented with her mother and her grandmother. So get them to start thinking about how they could do something that could improve things in their classroom community or their school community, their Muslim community, or even the non-Muslim community, the greater community that they live in. Then leaving the program with a really positive message about the future being theirs, that they have some pretty important decisions and say in the way their life unfolds. That they may not have all the decisions at this time in their life because their adults are making a lot of decisions, but they have a choice how they show up within that to have an awesome life, inshallah. And then they graduate. We have a fun assessment game, and we also do the written assessment survey again that we did at the beginning, so we can compare the shifts in the class as a whole. They also have an opportunity to share personally what they loved about the program and what they learned and how it's changed things for them, and a bit of a celebration at how awesome it's been to work together. And so this is the first 2 terms, or the first semester half of the year. And this is applying what they learned. We all know that to get a deeper understanding of what we've learned, that teaching what we've learned really helps embed that knowledge. So the 3rd term, we do a project around teaching. So we have a lesson around growing your creativity and potential. So opening up their minds to the possibilities that they have, the creativity within them, the potential that they have. And then developing a class project where they create a book as a class that is filled with poetry or skits or explanations, stories, narrations, rap, however they creatively want to share about Spark. In small groups within the class, each group presents their part of the book, and the book is put together as a class book. Then towards the end of the term, they teach what they have put together to a buddy class. So another class gets to learn what they have been doing, preferably a younger class, so that they can get excited about what they might get to do when they join the Spark program, and then present what they created to the school assembly, so the school as a whole can get to see what's actually going on in this Spark program, because there often seems to be a lot of mystery and curiosity from students who are not in it when they hear the other students talking about Spark, when they see the engagement between the Spark teachers and the students, subhanAllah. In term 4, we now want to get them to implement everything that they've learned to do a really beautiful community project. So we'll go through the leadership module, understanding your community. We revisit that class and then do a class project where they pick a charity. They might pick a project where they themselves are the charity, or they may pick a project where they raise money for a particular charity. We want them to try and involve the local community somehow, whether it's their school community or the local Muslim community or the local extended community. We want now to try and get them to extend outside their class to beyond, inshallah, and implement all the skills they've learned in doing this project and fulfill the charity project that they've decided to do. It's a beautiful way of really consolidating everything they've learned and getting them to really notice how their Spark is operating, and get them also to see outside of their world into the greater community, inshallah, and be a part of the solution. Show up as with that Muslim identity that we would love them to have, the Islamic identity that we would love them to have, inshallah. If you have any questions or you want to discuss how this might work in your school, make sure you book in a call with me at meetcatherine.com. If you can't find a time that works because of time difference, you're welcome to email me. The details are below this video of how you can contact me. I'm really appreciative of the fact that you have seen all the way through to the end of this presentation. I hope that you have felt inspired and excited about this work as I am. And I would love to leave you with the reminder that verily in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest, and how important it is for us to teach this in our schools and give this valuable lesson to our students, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.